The bedroom door creaked, a sound sharp enough to slice through the midnight silence. I froze, my hand hovering over the light switch, my heart lurching into my throat. The faint glow of the hallway spilled across the hardwood, catching the edge of a stranger's silhouette. A man's broad-shouldered, slipping out of our bedroom. My wife's soft giggle followed, a sound I'd once cherished, now twisted into a knife that gutted me where I stood. I pressed myself against the wall, the cold plaster biting into my bare shoulder. My pulse roared in my ears, drowning out the faint rustle of sheets from the room beyond. 25 years. 25 years of shared mornings, quiet evenings, and whispered promises. Was it all unraveling in this moment? My mind screamed to barge in, to confront, to demand, but my feet were cemented to the floor, paralyzed by a dread I couldn't name. Earlier that evening, Claire had been radiant, her auburn hair catching the candlelight at the restaurant where we celebrated our anniversary. She'd worn the emerald dress I loved, the one that hugged her curves like a memory of our youth. Over wine, she'd laughed too loudly, her eyes darting her phone every few minutes. "Work," she'd said, brushing it off with a wave. I'd nodded, ignoring the unease curling in my gut. Work didn't text at 9 p.m. Work didn't make her cheeks flush like that. Now, standing in the dark, I replayed the signs I'd dismissed. The late nights at the gallery, where she curated exhibits. The new perfume, sharp and unfamiliar, clinging to her clothes. The way she'd started locking her phone, a habit she'd never had. Each was a pebble, small enough to ignore, but together they formed a landslide threatening to bury me. I forced myself to move, one silent step toward the bedroom. The air felt thick, heavy with the scent of her jasmine lotion, and something muskier, foreign. My hand trembled as I gripped the doorknob, the metal cool against my palm. I pushed the door open, just enough to see. Claire was alone now, sitting on the edge of our bed, her silk robe slipping off one shoulder. Her hair was mussed, her lips swollen, and her eyes, those hazel eyes I'd memorized, were wide with something like fear or maybe guilt. "Mark." Her voice was a whisper, fragile as glass. "You're home early." I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. Who was he? The words came out low, jagged, like they'd been ripped from my chest. Her face crumpled, but only for a moment before she straightened, pulling the robe tighter. "What are you talking about? There's no one here." Her voice was too smooth, too practiced. She stood, crossing the room to me, her bare feet whispering against the floor. "You're exhausted, babe. You're imagining things." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the memory of that silhouette burned behind my eyes. "Don't," I said, stepping back. "Don't lie to me, Claire. Not after everything." Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time in years, I saw her, really saw her. The faint lines around her eyes, the tension in her jaw, the way her hands twisted together like she was holding herself together by sheer will. She wasn't the woman I'd married, not entirely. But then, was I still the man she'd vowed to love? The next morning, the house felt like a stage set, every object a prop in a play gone wrong. The coffee pot gurgled, filling the kitchen with its bitter aroma. Claire sat across from me, her fingers wrapped around a mug, her gaze fixed on the table. I waited for her to speak, to explain, but the silence stretched, taut as a wire. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "It was the mistake. A stupid, reckless mistake." I stared at her, my chest tight. "A mistake?" I echoed. "You let a stranger into our bed, Claire. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." Her eyes flicked up, glistening with tears. "It wasn't like that. It was the party. A one-time thing. I got caught up in the moment, the excitement. I thought it wouldn't mean anything. A party." The word landed like a slap. I saw it then, in flashes, low lights, pulsing music, bodies pressed too close. A swingers' party. She'd later confess, something she'd been invited to by a colleague at the gallery. A world I'd never imagined her stepping into. My mind reeled, trying to reconcile the Claire I knew, my Claire who loved quiet hikes and old jazz records, with this stranger who traded our vows for a thrill. Why? My voice broke, betraying the anger I tried to cage. Was I not enough? Was this not enough? I gestured to the kitchen, to the life we'd built, the photos on the fridge, the chipped mugs we bought on our honeymoon. She flinched, her hands trembling around the mug. It wasn't about you, Mark. It was, I don't know. I felt invisible, like I was disappearing into this life, into being just a wife, a curator, a routine. I wanted to feel alive again, just for a night. Her words cut deeper than I expected. I'd thought we were happy, that our quiet evenings were enough. But maybe I'd missed something. Her restlessness, her need for more. Had I been too comfortable, too blind? The days that followed were a blur of silences and stilted conversations. Claire begged for forgiveness, her apologies spilling out in tear-soaked pleas. She swore it was a one-time lapse, that she'd never go back to that world. She promised therapy, transparency, anything to rebuild what we'd lost. But trust, once shattered, doesn't mend easily. Every time she left for work, my mind conjured images I couldn't unsee. Every text she received was a potential betrayal. I started digging, unable to stop myself. I found the gallery's event calendar, cross-referenced her late nights. I checked her phone when she was in the shower, hating myself for it, but needing to know. There were no obvious signs, no damning messages. But the absence of evidence wasn't proof. Doubt had taken root, a weed choking out the love I'd once felt so fiercely. One night, I found a crumpled invitation in her coat pocket, tucked beneath a scarf. A handwritten note, elegant script on thick cardstock. Join us again. You were unforgettable. No name, no address, just a date and time. Tomorrow night. My stomach churned. She hadn't gone back, she'd said. But had she been tempted? Was she still lying? I confronted her that evening, the invitation trembling in my hand, her face drained of color, her breath catching. I didn't go, she whispered. I swear, Mark. I kept it because, I don't know, maybe I was afraid of who I'd become if I threw it away. I wanted to scream, to throw the note in her face, but something in her eyes stopped me. Raw, desperate honesty. She was broken, too, caught in her own guilt and shame. For the first time, I saw her not as a betrayer, but as someone lost, grappling with her own choices. The next night, I followed her. I told myself it was to catch her, to confirm the worst. But deep down, I wanted her to prove me wrong. She drove to the gallery, parked, and sat in her car, her silhouette slumped against the wheel. No party, no strangers. Just Claire, alone, staring into the dark. I didn't confront her. Instead, I went home, the invitation still burning a hole in my pocket. I sat on our bed, the same bed where I'd seen that silhouette, and made a choice. Not to forgive, not yet, but to try. To sit with the pain, to face the cracks in our forever, and to see if we could build something new from the ruins. But as I slipped the invitation into a drawer, a final thought chilled me. What if the silhouette I'd seen wasn't a stranger at all, but shadow of the man I used to be?